Hello, Mark here, and I am going to teach you about absolute and relative references. What that is those little dollar signs that you see sometimes in the formula bar up here in Excel. A lot of people don't quite understand what they are and they just accept them, but they will make your life much easier when you know how to use them. So let's think about a relative reference, which means you're going to point to a cell. If you go over a column or you go down a row, it will also change. For example, in this little spreadsheet that I just made up some departments. I have some budget numbers, and then I have a risk, low, medium, high. We're going to mess around with this. So for example, over here in E7, if I type in the equal sign and I point to budget, I have equals D7. You can also see it up here in the formula bar. You can press enter, or you can actually click on this checkbox, which is the exact same thing as pressing enter. So it points to D7, which is 50,000. If I copy this, or I use the fill handle, the fill handle is that small square down at the bottom right of the cell. If I click and drag that down, or if I copy it down, it is going to point to this cell. So notice how the D7 now changed to D8 because Excel is trying to help you. If you move down a row, everything is going to move down a row. If you move over one column, so for example, I'm going to go over one column here, it still reads 50,000, but which 50,000? It's not this 50,000 because I moved over one from E to F. It's actually pointing to this 50,000, and I can tell because it's reading E7. If I click in the formula bar, it actually highlights. So that is relative. That basically means if you move over or down, it's always going to move for you. Sometimes that's what you want, but sometimes that's not what you want. Sometimes you want it to stay someplace. So I'm going to press escape, and I'm just going to delete these dummy numbers we were just playing around with. And there we go. So let's pretend that for our risk levels, I always want $100,000 in here. And I want to use a formula so I can change it easily. So over here in C2, I'm going to type in 100,000. Now, I want all of these to point to C2. And they always have to stay. So the easy way to do it equals C2. Now there's two ways to do this. You can manually type in a dollar sign in front of the C, in between the equal sign and the C, and a dollar sign in front of the 2. That makes it column and row absolute. So the S, the dollar sign, I kind of think of it as an S for sticky. It's glue. It is always going to stay there. Now I'm going to press enter. Now it's pointing to that C2. I can drag it down and I can drag it across, and it's still going to be pointing to the C2. Everything points to C2. So if you ever want something to always point to a specific cell, you use the dollar signs in front of the letter and in front of the row. Okay? So now let's delete that. So we have gone through relative, and this is completely absolute, meaning row and column absolute. Where it gets interesting is that you can mix and match. Excuse me. For example, let's put in some risk. So this is the budget. Low is a low risk, so I want it to be a little bit higher than 50,000. Medium is a little bit higher than low, and high is a little bit higher than medium. So we're just going to multiply it by a factor. So this factor, I'm just making this up. We'll do 1.1. So that'll be, when we do the multiplication of 50,000 times 1.1, it'll be 10% higher. And then medium we'll do 1.5, and high will be 1.9. And we are going to multiply this 50,000 times this. And that's what we want in the low. But in the medium, I want the 50,000 times the 1.5. But I don't want to do it one at a time because that's just too much work. So we're going to use the relative and the absolute references to do the hard work for us. So we're going to do this first step. Over here in E7, type in equals D7. And I'm going to put multiplies times E4. Now you have to think, where am I going next? I'm going to go horizontal. I'm going to go from low to medium. So let's think of our next step. When I go to F, I want to stay in column D because I always want to multiply 50,000. That's my base. So if I want to stay on D, I put the dollar sign in front of the D. Now let's look at row 4. I'm going to go across. So do I want it to change from E to F? Yes, I do. Do I want it to go from 4 to 5? Well, it's irrelevant because I'm going to be on row 7 going across. So in this particular case, I just want the dollar sign in front of the D, and I keep the E4 relative. And I press enter, and there's my 55,000. I can drag it to the right. And just to check, I'm going to press F2, or you can click in here. But I have done the correct multiplication. So I have saved myself 2 steps. I didn't have to do 3 formulas. I just had to do 1 formula and copy it over. So we have looked ahead and we have taken care of finance. But we didn't look ahead enough. Because what is going to happen if I do operations? I'm going to drag it down. Let's see what happens. I drag it down, I get some weird value error. That means something happened with my math. I don't know what happened. Let's figure it out. I'm going to click in here and I'm going to see that I have tried to multiply 80,000 times this cell, which is empty, but it really has the word risk in it. You can't multiply a number times a word. That's why I get the value error. Why did that happen? Well, look, it used to be E4 when I was up here, but when I went down, it changed to E5. So this second part, I needed to stay on row 4 because row 4 is where my factors are. Not a big deal. I'm going to press escape. I'm going to delete the error. Go back to where we started. So we know we want to stay in D7. But now we also know we want to stay in row 4. But I want to change it from E to F to G. So in that case, I put the dollar sign in front of the 4, not in front of the E. Once again, I want the E to change because I want EFG. I'm going to drag it across because I want to be consistent. And I should not see any change because if I go from here to here, I'm still pointing to row 4. Awesome. Now let's go down. And now I have 88,000, which is correct. I'm going to click and we're going to check. I'm multiplying times D. I'm always staying on D because of the dollar sign. And now I'm always staying on 4 because of the dollar sign in front of the 4. So now this is column absolute because I put the dollar sign in front of the D. This is row absolute because I put the dollar sign in front of the 4. And now I can just drag it down and drag it across. And just by using and practicing our absolute and relative references, I can always have the formulas point to the right rows. This also works when you copy. I like to drag, but it also works if you copy. It carries the absolute and the relative references. I'll show you another little trick if you don't like to type in all the dollar signs. For example, remember when we pointed over to C2? I'll do it over here just as a little experiment to show you the little trick. Point over to C2, I'm pressing enter. Now watch this. You click inside the formula bar. And instead of typing, watch what happens when you press F4 once. It makes it absolute. If you press F4 a couple of times, it will cycle through every possible combination. So now we have dollar signs in front of the letter, in front of the number. I press it again. Now it's only in front of the row. Press it again. Now it's only in front of the letter. One more time. Now it's completely relative. And then one more time. And we're back at absolute. So it goes through every possible combination for the address there. So you can type it in or you can use F4. I'm going to press escape. But that's basically all there is to it. When you talk about absolute and relative references, when you first do it, I will admit, it's a little bit weird because you have to think ahead. You have to think, well, I'm going across and I'm going down, so I have to figure out which one to stick and which one to change. But once you do it for a day or so, you'll get the hang of it and you'll be on your way. Well, that's it for this lesson. I'll see you in the next one.